it is time for yet another video, KLF Part 3. But first, I'm going to get right into the video. But first, I want to do a shameless plug because I want to, and it's my channel, and I get to do whatever I want. This came out today. After Hours, 4K, Criterion Collection. After Hours, one of the greatest movies of all time. It only ever came out on DVD like 20 years ago, a long time ago. And now it is here in all of its 4K glory on the Criterion Collection. One of Martin Scorsese's greatest movies, After Hours. I know this is random and has nothing to do with the KLF. I don't care. You need to see this. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Stop wasting time and go see this immediately. It's chock full of extras. I mean, come on. One of the finest movies ever made, After Hours. Right here. Okay, let's get to the KLF, shall we? KLF. Where did I leave off? I left off at the jams. 1987, What the Fuck Is Going On, Burn the Bastards, Who Killed the Jams, The History of the Jams, Shag Times. So the Shag Times was the end of times in some ways for a certain chapter of the KLF. In fact, it was the end of that chapter. In 1989, they would, well, in 1988, really, they would start to release their Pure Trance, well, it's a trilogy. It was supposed to be 5 records, but it ended up being 3. The other 2, well, I'll get into that. But there was supposed to be a string of 5 Pure Trance records. Only 3 came out. The 3 that came out were brilliant. And it's only been in the last maybe decade that more and more information is coming out about the other 2 that didn't come out. But I will get to that. KLF shifted. They stopped recording. They only recorded one more or released one more record as the Justified Ancients of Moo Moo. The vast majority of everything they did from here on out was as the KLF. And this is when they really, the next couple of years, like toward the end of 88 through 1991 is when they would release the core of their most brilliant music. That 3-year span, late 80s, early 90s there. The music was incredible. And it's always interested me because what Bill Drummond says in the Manager video is that he's disgusted by record company politics, how pop singles that come out are ruined and watered down by endless remixes. And that's another thing that kind of makes you think with Bill Drummond, like if he hated remixes so much, why would you release all of these singles that were remixed to death? And they did. The KLF only released a handful of songs, but they have a lot of records, and they're all just remixes. They remix things to the hilt, with like What Time Is Love, which was Pure Trance number 1, 3 AM Eternal, which was Pure Trance number 2, and Last Train to Trance Central, which was Pure Trance number 5. Pure Trance number 3 was, oh gosh, what was it? Now I can't even remember the name of it. It was Love. What was it? Love Trance? Yeah, Love Trance. Love Trance was number 3. It had an orange cover. And yeah, it was not released. I think the sleeves were released, but no record. They printed up the sleeves and no records came with it. And then number 4 was Turn Up the Strobe. And I've heard limited snippets of this song, or maybe it was the whole song, I don't remember, but YouTube has these tracks, and it sounded like Turn Up the Strobe is a track that would later become its Grim Up North. It has the same bass line, the same groove, the same beat. It basically sounds like it's Grim Up North. It's interesting to hear the similarities. The early version on Turn Up the Strobe is really interesting. What's really interesting about all the Pure Trance singles is how ahead of their time they were. And I'm going to start off with the first release in the Pure Trance series. And this, my friends, is one of the greatest techno songs of all time, in my opinion. For a group that apparently didn't care, who hated remixes, who hated pop music, who wanted nothing to do with it, they had an immense talent to shift from the corny cheeseball sampling of the Justifying Agents of Moo to this. One of, in my opinion, one of the most forward-thinking, groundbreaking techno records ever made. Period. This cannot be argued. I think if you asked any serious techno head if they wanted to dig back and think of one of the first modern hardcore techno tracks ever made, it would be this. What Time Is Love? Brilliant single. Now this is a promo. I have a U.S. edition of it, but this is a promo. The KLF, they always release their promo records in this sleeve, these kinds of sleeves. They all had the logo, it said KLF on them, and it said 12-inch or LP if it was an LP. I do not have, this is the original UK promo. I do not have the original UK issue with the green number 1 on it. I do have the US one, and I will talk about that. It also has a green number 1 on it. I never got around to getting the green number 1 issue because I have this. The track listing is exactly the same. And, there's nothing to see here other than the fact that I wrote back then. I wrote on my labels when I was a kid. I don't know. I just thought that was important. I wrote What Time Is Love. And I wrote the date as well, so I would remember when I bought this. And I bought this brand new, and I dated it July 10th, 1989, almost 34 years ago to the day. Today's July 11th. So I've had this exactly 34 years. 34 years ago, I was scribbling this into the label. This is one of the great records. Came out of nowhere. Remember that, they were known as the Justified Agents of Moo. They were doing that. I don't know. I've never been a fan of the Jam's music other than its Grim Up North. That music is more interesting than it is good. And that's what the KLF is about. This is what the KLF is about. I think they were about doing things that were interesting rather than good. And I think they would be the first to admit that. Interesting is always better than good. Now, it also helps when you put out records that are interesting and amazing, which this is. Listen, if you've never heard this record, I think most of you probably have if you're watching this video, but if you've never heard this record, you need to hear this. And then try to put in your mind, this came out in 1989, okay? Techno just didn't sound like this back then. And KLF created the whole word trance. Trance didn't exist before this. It didn't. And it's interesting because this isn't trance at all. Paul Oakenfold will go on to remix this, and I'll talk about that remix, but I have that record. And, Oakenfold would become the trance king in later years, but nothing the KLF ever did was ever trance. They came up with the term, and then they bastardized it, and it turned into, what trance is today, one of the most annoying genres on the face of the earth. But this was original trance. This is what we thought of as trance because it was called Pure Trance. This is not trance. This is just hard techno rhythms, made on very antiquated equipment, but it didn't matter. The beats and the groove and the melody, which is actually from Jesus Christ Superstar. But who cares? They were always based on simple samples. But I don't know if a lot of people know that either, but that whole melody, that dun 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 dun, that's from Jesus Christ Superstar. So go check out if you can stomach it. Watch Jesus Christ Superstar. I can't stomach that movie. Any musical at all, really. I don't want to get down some other beaten path, but yeah, I guess I don't want to walk down the well-worn path of hating musicals, but yeah, anytime, any situation where people can just spontaneously break into song, I want to hurt people. I hate that. Musicals are the worst. It's like torture for me. I'd rather have someone just kick me square in the nuts than sit through a musical. But anyway, I'm going to stop Stop right there. They do get that main melody from Jesus Christ Superstar, but so what? Everything, it just works. It works. This record does nothing but work, and it works in a big way. Now this is the original US issue. Sorry for the glare. I still have the shrink on it. You know, I try to preserve all my records by keeping the shrink on. I have done that for years. You see the KLF sitting on my table here, the promo there. But anyway, this is what the UK version looks like, more or less. By the way, What Time Is Love, from what I've read, that title came from Bill Drummond asking what time a rave started. Like, he and Cauty and some other people went to a rave and it hadn't started yet, and Drummond was like, "What time is love?" That's my horrible Scottish accent, by the way. I love it when Bill Drummond says rock and roll. The way he rolls his R's, it's beautiful. And he says, "I love rock and roll." It's just hilarious. And, you know, people would openly mock him for saying it that way. Like Mark Manning, which I'm going to get into the books too. Don't you worry. I'm getting into the Mark Manning, Bill Drummond books because those are some of the finest books you will ever read in your life. I'll get to those. Don't you worry about it. But anyway, this is the US issue on TVT Records. TVT. TV Tunes is what that stands for. This is an American label that was dedicated to like releasing old TV jingles and show tunes. They signed the KLF. They also signed Nine Inch Nails for Pretty Hate Machine. It's a weird world, isn't it? I think from what I've read, TVT just thought they'd jump onto the bandwagon and try to, you know, release this wacky industrial techno music they heard so much about. And they did. Now this track listing on the US one is a little different. This has the original, these are the labels, obviously. This US issue has the original version, it has the live version, and it has, oh God, you know, the track listing isn't on here. So I think it's the live version. No, I know it's the live version, the original version. Then I think, what's the last version? Why can't I think of it? I think it's called, I want to say, is it the Techno Gate version? Am I not remembering this? Let me think about this. Well, anyway, it'll come to me, but I'm pretty sure there's only two versions on the UK one. The UK one has a version that's not on the US one. The UK has the original version, and then on the B side, it has like this ambient version. It's basically the exact same version as the original version, just with no beat. And yeah, I think it's called, I think the version you're getting on this US one is, I think it's called the Techno Slam Mix. Again, there's no track listing on this or any of these. Or there might be, no, there might be a track listing on one of them. But anyway, Techno Slam Mix. All great mixes. I mean, if you want all of the mixes of this, well, you're going to be buying a lot of records because What Time Is Love got re-released more times than I can count. If you want to count, I've got most of them sitting here. I don't have the super rare KLF stuff. I don't have the super rare stuff like Deep Shit. They released a record called Deep Shit, and I think there's literally like 5 copies ever made in the world. So yeah, I don't have that. But I do have these. And any KLF record's hard to find these days because they deleted their catalog. I mean, this is all gone. KLF, when they left the music biz, they deleted their catalog, and it was immediately out of print forever, and it's never come back in print. Sure, there have been bootlegs here and there, but never the real thing. All right, this, Pure Trance number 2. As you can see, 3 a.m. Eternal. Here's the back. No track listing. This is the original 12-inch version of 3 a.m. Eternal. You see Pure Trance up there. They all had that Pure Trance denotation, little logo, little reminder, banner, if you will. These versions are exclusive to this 12-inch. I've never heard these anywhere else. The original version. And is there, I don't remember what's on this. I want to say it's a Moody Boy. Is it a Moody Boyz remix? Moody Boyz is a group that was a big part of the KLF, and his name's Tony Thorpe. And he released records as the name Moody Boyz, and he put out his own stuff, and it's great. He has a record called Product of the Environment. I highly recommend, if you like electronic music that has all kinds of different flavors to it, it's really hard to pin down as I do. Check out Moody Boyz' Product of the Environment and anything he did. He had a single called Shango that had a Black Dog remix on it that was so good, man. Anything Black Dog did obviously is amazing. Shango. Anyway, Moody Boyz was a big part of the KLF. He remixed pretty much all of these singles in all of their different permutations. This is the original release of 3 a.m. Eternal. This is one of my personal favorite KLF records. I love this record. This is the remixes for 3 a.m. Eternal. Bill Drummond hated remixes, hated them, and yet here they are. KLF couldn't release enough of them. Okay, here's the Moody Boy mix. Sorry, I get lost with these sometimes. KLF fans, listen, I'm doing my best here. I know most of these records and the remix. I know people are going to start yelling at me for not being able to remember every last detail. I'm working from the hip here. I don't have notes in front of me, all right? I think I do a pretty decent job in remembering track orders and remixes. If you need to correct me, do it politely, all right? Thank you. But this has 4 remixes on it, the best of which is the Orb remix. It's called Blue Danube Orbital. You would think it's Orbital doing the mix, but it's not. It's Orb. It's Alex Patterson. It is not Orbital. And Orbital, I don't think Orbital was even around when this remix came out. Chime did come out in 1989. I think this was 1988, right? 3 a.m. Eternal is 1988. Let me look at that label. Ooh, it says 1989. Well, anyway, this is the Orb doing the mix. You get 4 mixes here, and the Orb basically takes the Blue Bit Danube and puts it in the middle of the track, and it's just this bizarre cut up electro ambient version, just like the Orb does, but one of their very, very early mixes. In fact, this could be their first remix. This could be Alex Patterson's first foray into remixing, because he and Jimi Cauty had the Chill Out rooms back in the late 80s. They worked together, they DJ'd together. That's what led to Chill Out, the album, which of course I will talk about. Are you kidding? How can you not talk about Chill Out? But yeah, Alex Patterson had a small hand in the KLF, as Cauty did with the Orb, with a huge ever-growing pulsating brain that grows from the ultra world? I don't remember. Huge pulsating brain that grows from something. Awesome song. Deeply ambient, one of the best ambient tracks. This is a killer remix EP. What's some of my favorite remixes of the 80s and 90s? Love this, absolutely one of my favorite KLF records. If I had to dump all my KLF records, I might keep this one. This would be the one I'd keep. I love this record. The remixes are so good. Moody Boyz is a fantastic electro mix. It's called Moody. He's called Moody Boy. He went by Moody Boyz mainly, but Moody Boy on that one. Now, you see this is 2. Love Trance was to be 3, never released. Turn Up the Strobe was to be 4, never released. The next one was this. Last Train to Trans Central. And the 2 mixes you get here are exclusive to this version. However, I will say the B-side track is very similar to the version that you find on Chill Out. It's very ambient, trains going by. It's essentially the same version you hear on Chill Out, but the version here is longer. Chill Out is kind of it's like one long track, but when Last Train to Trans Central pops up, excuse me, when Last Train pops up on Chill Out, it's maybe 3 or 4 minutes. It's a good 6-7 minutes on this one, so it is longer. You hear different stuff on this one. Here's the back. The KLF. This is a cool single, man. Love this one. From what I've read too, there were a number of copies of this that got damaged at the time, so they had to scrap them. So this is not an easy one to find. In fact, I think of all the Pure Trance records that were released, I think this is the hardest one to find. Oh, you know what? I have a press sheet in here too. Here's a press sheet, or DJ report, as they also called them. You want me to read this? You do? I will. This is what it says. Let's read this. Does it have a date on here? I know I got this in 1990. I'm almost positive I got this. Was in maybe late 89. Late 89, early 1990. Last train to Trance Central. More from the forthcoming KLF motion picture, The White Room. And this is when they started promoting The White Room, which is basically them. The White Room's on YouTube. This is the glory of YouTube. I'd never seen White Room until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'd never seen it. I'd heard about it, and there was all this rumor that it was coming out. It never got officially released. I was so excited to see it, and then I saw it, and I was like, yeah, okay. It's Bill Drummond and Jimi Cauty just driving around, and songs would come in and out from the White Room, and I don't know. It's all right. I mean, it's just Drummond and Cauty being goofy, although they take themselves deadly seriously. So, watching it knowing that made it more entertaining. I mean, nothing these guys did ever was not entertaining. Maybe the Brilliant album, that's one exception. Anyway, more from the forthcoming KLF motion picture, The White Room. Both the A and the B are radical remixes of the original, which is yet to see the light of day. The A side is so literal and may be totally unlistenable to anybody who is neither a freight train enthusiast or flat on their backs and out of their heads. You have been warned. The B side is the KLF back in their pure trance, crashing the millennium, leaving its predecessors What Time Is Love and 3 a.m. Eternal in the debris of the late 80s. Dance music for the more foolhardy DJ, the one willing to risk watching his or her floor clear at the sound of lost sheep bleeding in the wilderness. No reaction required. So KLF, right? And then in big letters, it says no reaction required. That was the point of these DJ reactions. You got these, and the label would be like, fill this out and send back to us and tell us what mix worked and what didn't work. KLF is actively saying, don't return it. We don't care. And man, I remember reading this very DJ report at the time. It was right when I started DJing in 1990, really. And I read this, and I was inspired, because to me, even DJing, like you want to have people dancing, but you should have a moment where you confuse your audience. As long as you're stretching the bounds of what they're used to, I think it's healthy to have that experience, especially when you're around other people. I think it's important for that confusion, for a song to come on and everyone be like, what in the hell is this? I'm not dancing to this. I've cleared floors before, and I've done it on purpose. And I honestly think one of the one inspiration I've had is stuff like this. I know I can fill up a dance floor, but why should I? Sometimes I'm not going to do that. Sometimes I think if the time is right, it's time to clear the floor. I know I can get them back. That's the sign of a good DJ, if you can clear the floor and then bring them back. And I was always able to do that. You have to entertain yourself to some degree, and it can be really funny clearing a dance floor. It just can. Below the no reaction required, I'm going to read this a little bit. Chill Out, the KLF Jams LP5. Chill Out was recorded live on location at Trance Central, the spiritual home of the KLF. Don't bother trying to listen to this LP if you have neither first switched off the lights and then laid your body to rest on the floor. Hopefully then the trip will be complete. Warning, drugs can seriously improve your judgment. It says impair/improve your judgment. Delete where necessary. Chill Out will be out in early 1990. There's your press release. They don't give a damn if you like the record or not. They don't care. Buy my record? Maybe not. Don't buy the record. Here's the label. Very much similar to 3 a.m. Eternal. No track listing. They didn't do stuff like that. They probably thought that was just completely uncool. Why would we give you a track listing? Here's your music, and now we're gonna go away. Very KLF like. So that is the meat of the Pure Trance singles, but I'm going to go into some peripheral releases now. This is What Time Is Love LP. Let me get it out of its sleeve here. Very striking cover, in your face, bright neon green with some neon pink. And this is an album. It has 6 tracks on it. This does have a track listing on it. What Time Is Love, the original. Relax Your Body, Dr. Felix, which is just a house track that they're inspired by. But they also wrote it, Dr. Felix, not under the KLF. But they were inspired to put it on here. This was like a mood piece, I think. This was a mood piece album. They wanted to keep milking What Time Is Love, more remixes that Bill Drummond hated. But inspirations on here. What Time Is Love, Italian mix. Yeah, that one's all right. Heartbeat, Liaisons D. That's also Cauty and Drummond. Another song they tacked on here. Very, very 80s house style here. Not my favorite song, but it's still pretty good. No Limit Dance Mix, Neon. Drummond and Cauty. These are all Drummond and Cauty tracks. What Time Is Love, the live version. And that was the one recorded at, the live version was recorded at Land of Oz, which was Paul Oakenfold's thing. Can't show this enough. Cool album. If you want to have a complete Pure Trance experience, you need to have this record. It's basically just Cauty and Drummond giving you as many mixes and vibes and inspirations as possible. Not a bad record. This wouldn't be an essential purchase, especially since really the only essential track on here is something you can buy on other releases, which is the original mix of What Time Is Love. So the KLF, they were working on their White Room album, and they were having money problems, and they needed to fund it. And I'm leaving out a ton of detail, I know, but I don't want to be doing these KLF videos for hours at a time. So in order to get more money to finish up their White Room project, which was using up all of their money, because remember, this was their own label. They were releasing all this stuff on their own label. So they're spending a lot of money just, releasing these records was just a promotional tool for the KLF, really, to bring in more money so they could do this movie, so they could put out more records. And, remember, I keep going back to that manager video, but Bill Drummond was done with the music business. So him putting out all this stuff, it did feel like an extended art project. It did feel like he's just taking this money to further push it into this grand scheme that he had. This was their next single, Kylie Said to Jason. This was the moment that the KLF just tried to completely copy the Pet Shop Boys. And you can hear it. And they did not have success in doing it. I mean, when you try to replicate what the Pet Shop Boys do, you're not going to succeed. The Pet Shop Boys are brilliant at what they do. Trying to copy them, probably not the greatest idea. But I think the KLF were just open about that. You can hear the influences here, the piano breakdowns and the house, the overt pop house music and the vocals. It's just, you can hear KLF really trying to replicate what the Pet Shop Boys do. Both of these images, by the way, are from the White Room, the movie. This is toward the end. There's Bill, fake mustache, and Jimi with his fake mustache. The movie is so ponderous too. You watching, you're like, really? This is what you put all your money into? It's just not good. I mean, it's funny in some moments, but mostly it's just Cauty and Drummond sitting around staring at the sky and with music playing. The music doesn't really fit what they're doing. It's their music, It's stuff from White Room mainly. And oh yeah, this has a poster in it. I will pull that out. There's the poster. I'll show the record first. Here are the labels. You get your standard KLF labels. There they are. Get 2 mixes. Yeah, this is absolutely their most overt pop moment, and it flopped. This record flopped in a big way. They lost a lot of money on this, and when they lost money on this, they had to stop trying to make the White Room movie. They put an end to that. I've kept pretty good care of this poster over the years, man. I just kept it folded. I never hung it. There it is. Can you see that? Yeah. So, as you can see, I like to keep all my stuff in good a shape and complete as possible. And yeah, not a good single. I don't know. They definitely done much, much, much better work than, you know, other stuff. This is the remix part that goes with Kylie Said to Jason. The remixes. And yeah, I mean, these remixes are okay. Again, it's just not a very, I don't know, not one of their more interesting moments. So yeah, but a good, you know, as a KLF fan, you have to have this, right? I mean, what are you going to do? Not have this? Now this is, and they did all the remixes themselves. Those are all KLF mixes. This is the Primal remix, and then you get, this is What Time Is Love, obviously. Yellow #1 this time. Techno Slam Mix, the original classic. Yeah, this isn't bad. The Primal mix is pretty good. It's more of a thumping mix, more of a club track. You know, it's not a bad mix actually. It's pretty decent. Let me show the label really quick. As you can imagine, yellow label, KLF logo. Yeah, it's, you know, if I were to recommend, like if I had to choose What Time Is Love Story LP or this, I'd have this. Primal mix is pretty cool. Here's yet another version of What Time Is Love. You get the Moody. This is a cool mix. Moody Boyz. Yeah, yeah. Let me get this off so it's not glaring. It's got kind of like a glossy cover. Nice cover. It's got an Echo and the Bunnymen mix. Yes, Bill Drummond and Ian McCulloch were tight. As I mentioned in that first video, Drummond was Echo and the Bunnymen's manager. So he and McCulloch were buds. And they still could be, as far as I know. Their mix isn't very good though. In fact, this one's okay. That one's, yeah. This one's really good. Tony Thorpe just always killed it, man. He was a great producer. He's, you know, still is, as far as I know. I haven't seen his name on many records lately, but this is the Moody Boyz, another re-release of 3 a.m. Eternal. Nice neon yellow black cover. Remixes. Bill Drummond is bombarding us with the things he hates. You have to stop and think, like, is he doing this on purpose? Is he trying to drive us nuts because he hates them? I love them. You couldn't re-release these tracks enough, if you ask me. As you see, you get 3 a.m. Let me see here. The Wayward Dub, Rankin Club. All of these are Moody Boyz mixes. All of them are fantastic. Some of these would later pop up on the US release, and I will talk about those in another video. I'll talk about all the permutations of these singles that I can. Here's some further Moody Boyz action. Tony Thorpe stepped in again and remixed Last Train to Trans Central. You get the 808 bass version. That's probably my favorite version. 120 Rock Steady is really good. And the Moody Very Speed version is just a very ambient version. That one popped up on the US 12-inch as well, which I will also talk about. Excellent Tony Thorpe mixes. He really understood this band very well. A slightly different label this time. I love that logo. Harking back to the Illuminatus trilogy, like I was talking about before, the pyramid with the eye. Again, read the books. I'm not going to get into that again. I'll be here all night. And then the speakers stacked on each other. And the sheep was a big, obviously, you know, a big indicator that it was a KLF record if you saw sheep on the cover. I'll talk about that later. They definitely have a sheep theme that cannot be ignored. Moody Boyz. That is the Pure Trance video, my friends. Lots of Moody Boyz. The KLF are this one especially, if you can find this, really good record. This one absolutely one of their best records. Such a good album, or 12-inch, excuse me. Essential. The original 3 AM Eternal. 2 exclusive mixes on here. You do not hear these mixes on any other release. So if you think you've heard all the versions, if you have the US version or the typical UK version, no. You need to have this. The Pure Trance. And this. Absolutely essential for any KLF fan. And, you know, yeah, Bill Drummond and Cauty, you know, they were definitely, the intrigue was building because people only knew them up to this point because of the Jams records. But then now all of a sudden they're putting out like really legitimate, intense, underground, hip techno music. These are guys that were aging. These are guys that are getting up into their late 30s at this point. They were supposed to be over and done with. They were supposed to be not interesting. But all of a sudden, here they come. They're roaring back. And they're more interesting than ever. They're still the wacky prankster guys, as they are dubbed in the press. But now they're really confusing people because they're putting out really good records. Really classic records. So now what do? Now we're really on the balls of our ass. This band is confusing us now. And it's a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing. What's going on? What the fuck is going on? Until next time.